I found proof my wife had been lying for 18 years. My daughters weren't mine. So I walked away from everything I built. But what happened next left everyone shaken. Her desperate call at 2 a.m. changed everything when she revealed the deadly secret threatening my little girl's life. If I could go back and change anything, it wouldn't be confronting Tracy about those hush phone calls or the weekends she claimed were just girls' trips. It would be about becoming the kind of man who didn't need their approval so badly that I was willing to ignore what was right in front of me. But that's hindsight for you. Crystal clear and completely useless. My name is Grant Murphy, and I'm 50 years old. I run a tour company in Colorado that takes people on guided adventures through the Rockies. I know every hidden waterfall and secret valley within a 100-mile radius of Denver. Funny how I could navigate the most treacherous mountain passes, but couldn't see the cliff edge in my own marriage. For almost 20 years, I believed I was building something unshakable, a business that thrived on my ability to show people the beauty they'd otherwise miss. A family anchored in everything I never had growing up with an alcoholic father and a mother who checked out emotionally before I hit 10. I thought I'd gotten it right where my parents got it wrong. Tracy and I met when she signed up for one of my hiking tours. Back then, I was just starting out, operating with secondhand equipment and more enthusiasm than business sense. She was the marketing director for a brewery, razor sharp and full of ideas about how I could expand beyond the weekend warrior crowd. Within 6 months, we were married. Within 2 years, we had Aubrey. 6 years later came Zoe. I built our house myself. A 3-bedroom log cabin overlooking a valley that catches the sunrise in a way that makes you believe in something bigger than yourself. Every morning for 18 years, I'd wake up early, brew coffee, and step onto the porch to watch that light show, planning the day's routes for my clients while the girls slept. The success of Murphy Wilderness Expeditions didn't happen overnight. I worked 7 days a week, missed birthdays sometimes, came home exhausted and smelling like campfire and sweat. But I always made it back. Always brought unique stones for the girls' collections. Aubrey liked quartz. Zoe preferred anything purple. Always made Sunday pancakes in the shapes of animals they'd request. I wasn't perfect, but I was present. Tracy started growing distant around the time Aubrey turned 13. I chalked it up to the stress of raising a teenager. She began taking more business trips, attending conferences that seemed to multiply each year. I never questioned it. The business was booming. I was guiding elite expeditions for corporate retreats, and our bank account was finally comfortable enough that I could breathe easier. The cabin became quieter. Dinners became fewer. Conversations became functional rather than meaningful. I told myself it was just a phase, that empty stretch of road every marriage hits where you're just trying to make it to the next landmark. I kept driving, kept my eyes on the horizon, kept believing we'd eventually turn a corner. I had no idea I was heading straight for a dead end. It was Aubrey's 18th birthday when everything fell apart. I'd spent weeks planning a surprise, a hot air balloon ride at dawn, followed by breakfast at that fancy place she'd been hinting about. I even closed the business for the day, something I'd never done outside of Christmas. I woke at 4 a.m., checked the weather one last time, and headed to the kitchen to pack the thermos of hot chocolate Aubrey always insisted on, no matter the season. That's when I noticed Tracy's laptop open on the counter. Her email pulled up. I'm not the snooping type. Never have been, but a name in the subject line froze me in place. Victor needs to know. My index finger hovered over the trackpad. One click. That's all it would take. I told myself to walk away. That trust mattered more than temporary curiosity. But something about the urgency in those 3 words made my stomach twist. I clicked. He's asking questions about the girls again. Aubrey especially. Now that she's turning 18, he wants to be involved. Says it's his right. I've held him off for this long, but I don't know if I can anymore. You promised he'd never find out they were his. What am I supposed to tell Grant? The mug I was holding shattered against the tile floor. Coffee splashed my bare feet, but I didn't feel it. Dad? What happened? Aubrey appeared in the doorway, hair disheveled from sleep, looking both annoyed and concerned. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't process the words swimming before my eyes that seemed to erase 18 years of my life in an instant. Dad, you're scaring me. Tracy appeared behind her, took one look at me, standing over her laptop, and her face drained of color. Aubrey, go back to your room, she said, her voice steady in that practiced way that now made perfect sense. She'd had years of practice hiding the truth. But it's my birthday, and now. Tracy's tone left no room for argument. When we were alone, she closed the laptop and crossed her arms. How much did you read? Enough. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. Victor, your college boyfriend? The one you said was just a friend when I found those letters. She nodded, eyes downcast. How long have you known? I asked. Always. Since the beginning. 2 decades of memories recalibrated themselves in my mind. The comments about Aubrey having her uncle's eyes, Zoe's musical talent that must have skipped a generation. They told me you left because you couldn't handle being a father. Victor's voice echoed for 19 years ago. They told me I was never their real dad. I whispered, more to myself than to Tracy. So why did you keep me around? Her answer came too quickly, too practiced. Because you were stable, reliable. Victor wasn't. I walked out the front door without another word, leaving behind the shattered mug on the floor, a fitting metaphor for what remained of my life. I drove straight to Eagles Peak, the highest point on my property. It was where I used to take clients for the sunrise view on premium tours. That morning, I watched daylight crawl across the valley alone, my phone buzzing in my pocket until the battery died. After 4 hours of mountain silence, I made 3 decisions: get a lawyer, rent an apartment in town, and cancel everything for the next week. I wasn't running away. I was regrouping. There's a difference. The studio apartment above Miller's Hardware wasn't much, but it had a bed and a coffee maker. The essentials. I paid 3 months' rent in advance, ignoring the sympathy in old Tom Miller's eyes. Small towns and their whispers. By sundown, everyone would know Grant Murphy had left his picture-perfect family. Mr. Murphy? A voice called as I unloaded my duffel bag from the truck. Matt Parker, local sheriff and my Tuesday night poker buddy, stood awkwardly by his cruiser. Just dropping off some supplies for Tom. I lied, shouldering the bag. Matt nodded, not buying it. Tracy called. Said he took off this morning. She's worried. She knows where I am. I turned to go. Grant. Matt's voice stopped me. Whatever's happening, don't make any decisions you'll regret. I looked him square in the eye. The decisions were made 18 years ago, Matt. Just not by me. After he left, I called Derek Santos, the best divorce attorney in 3 counties. His receptionist put me on the schedule for the next morning. That night, alone on a squeaky mattress, my phone rang, now recharged but still filled with missed calls and messages. It was Zoe, my 12-year-old. My heart clenched when I saw her name, remembering she wasn't really mine. I answered anyway. Dad. Her voice was small, uncertain. Mom said you're not coming home. I need some time, kiddo. My throat felt like I'd swallowed gravel. Is it because of my birthday party next month? Mom said we might have to cancel it. Of course, Tracy would make this about logistics, about parties and appearances. Typical. No, sweetheart. It's complicated adult stuff. Is it because you're not our real dad? The question hit like a thunderbolt. Aubrey told me. She said that's why you left us. My knuckles went white around the phone. They'd already spun the story. I was the villain who abandoned them when the truth came out. I didn't leave you, Zoe. I'm right here. My voice came out stronger than I felt. And biology doesn't make a father. Showing up does. After hanging up, I stared at the ceiling fans spinning lazy circles above me. Tomorrow, I'd start building a new life. Tonight, I'd allow myself 1 glass of bourbon and these final hours of grief for the family I thought was mine. The paternity test results Derek insisted on came back 3 days later, confirming what I already knew. The call from Sam Reynolds, my oldest friend and business partner, came exactly 1 week after I moved out. You need to come to the office, he said without preamble. Tracy's here with paperwork. Says you're selling your shares in the company. Like hell I am. I growled, already pulling on my boots. When I arrived at Murphy Wilderness Expeditions, Tracy was sitting in my chair behind my desk, a thin man in an expensive suit beside her. There he is, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I was just explaining to Sam that you've decided to step away from the business. For your mental health. I crossed the room in 3 strides. Get out of my chair. Grant, the lawyer began. Mrs. Murphy has expressed concerns about your ability to maintain professional obligations given your current instability. Sam looked between us, confused. What the hell is happening? What's happening? I said, not taking my eyes off Tracy. is that my wife has been lying to me for 18 years about being the father of her children. Now she wants to push me out of my own company." The lawyer cleared his throat. "Given the circumstances," I cut him off, "are that I built this company from nothing. My name is on the building. My sweat equity is in every trail and campsite we use." I planted both hands on the desk, leaning forward. "I'm not going anywhere." Tracy's composure cracked. "Victor has rights, Grant. He wants to be in the girls' lives now. We need your cooperation." "My cooperation?" I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "You didn't need my cooperation to let another man father your children. You don't need it now." I turned to Sam. "Schedule an emergency board meeting. We're restructuring the company, without Mrs. Murphy's involvement." Tracy stood, face flushed with anger. "You can't do that." "Watch me." I held the office door open. "You might have taken my family, but you won't take what I built. Not now, not ever." After they left, Sam handed me a bourbon, no ice. "You want to tell me what's really going on?" "Later," I said, staring out the window at the mountains that had never betrayed me. "First, we have a company to protect." 2 weeks into my new life, I found a rhythm. Mornings at the office reorganizing the business. Afternoons scouting new trails to keep my mind occupied. Evenings alone with maps and bourbon. I was surviving, if not living. The emergency board meeting went exactly as planned. With Sam's backing and 2 other investors who'd been with me since the beginning, we restructured the company to remove Tracy from operations. She'd retained some shares. I wasn't heartless, but Murphy Wilderness Expeditions would remain mine. What I didn't anticipate was Aubrey waiting outside my apartment when I returned from a particularly grueling hike up Mason Ridge. "Dad," she said, rising from the steps. The word hit like a punch to the gut. "Aubrey." I unlocked the door, holding it open. "Come in." She surveyed the sparse studio with barely concealed judgment. "So this is where you're hiding." I dropped my gear by the door. "I'm not hiding. I'm regrouping." "That's not what everyone's saying." She perched on the edge of the only chair. "Mom says you abandoned us because you couldn't handle the truth." So that was Tracy's narrative. Convenient. "Your mother's been handling the truth just fine for 18 years. I replied, keeping my voice steady. "She just didn't bother sharing it with me." Aubrey's eyes, so like Victor's, how had I never seen it, flashed with something between anger and shame. "You could have stayed. Nothing had to change." I almost laughed. "Everything already changed, Aubrey. I just didn't know it. So you're just done with us? With me and Zoe?" Her voice cracked slightly. I sat across from her on the bed. "I'm not done with you. I can never be done with you. But I need time to figure out who I am if I'm not your biological father." "You're still my dad," she whispered. "The DNA doesn't change that." For the first time in weeks, something inside me softened. "Does Victor know that?" She looked away. "I met him yesterday. Mom arranged it." My stomach clenched. "And he was nice." She shrugged. "But awkward." Kept staring at me like I was some science experiment. Said I have his mother's eyes. I'd spent 18 years learning every expression on Aubrey's face. Victor might share her DNA, but he was a stranger thrust into her life by Tracy's manipulation. "I have a question," I said carefully. "When your mother told you the truth, what did she say about me?" Aubrey hesitated. "She said you'd be upset, that you might leave when you found out. And when I did leave." "What then?" "She said we always knew this might happen, that some men can't handle not being biologically connected." The calculated cruelty of it stole my breath. Tracy had prepared them for my departure before I even knew I had reason to leave. "Aubrey, listen to me. I left because 18 years of lies is a lot to process. Not because I stopped loving you or Zoe." I reached for her hand. "I need time, but I'm not disappearing from your lives." After she left, I stood at the window watching her drive away. The conversation had opened something inside me. Not healing exactly, but a path toward it. The package arrived at my office the following Tuesday. No return address, just a manila envelope with my name typed on the front. Inside was a private investigator's report on Victor Reese. I hadn't ordered it. Turning to the final page, I found a handwritten note. "Thought you should know who you're dealing with. Sam." Victor's history unfolded across 12 meticulously documented pages. Graduated from state with Tracy. Started a tech company that failed spectacularly. 2 DUIs. A restraining order from a former girlfriend. Child support for a son in California he never saw. The most interesting detail came halfway through. Victor had known about the girls all along. He and Tracy had maintained contact throughout our marriage, with financial transactions flowing from our joint account to his personal one every few months. I called Sam immediately. "How long have you had this?" "I hired the PI the day after the board meeting. Got the report yesterday." My hands tightened on the paper. "She's been paying him." "Looks that way." The amounts increased after each of her business expansions. Almost like she was giving him a cut of my success. I finished. The success that should have gone to my daughter's futures. After hanging up, I drove straight to Derek's office, report in hand. "This changes things," the attorney said after reviewing the documents. "If she's been funneling marital assets to him without your knowledge, we can use that." "I don't want to use it," I replied. "I want to protect my girls from him." Derek's eyebrows rose. "Your girls. DNA doesn't make a father," I said firmly. "And this report proves Victor Reese isn't fit to be in their lives. What exactly do you want?" I leaned forward. "I want custody, and I want to make sure Victor stays away from them." "That's a tall order for a non-biological father," Derek warned. "Then we better get creative," I answered, "because I'm not letting my daughters become pawns in whatever game Tracy and Victor have been playing." As I left Derek's office, my phone buzzed with a text from Zoe. "Can I come see you tomorrow? Just me. Don't tell Mom." For the first time in weeks, I felt something like purpose returning. The truth hadn't just shaken me. It had awakened something I'd forgotten. I wasn't just a victim of Tracy's deception. I was the only real father those girls had ever known. And I wasn't walking away. The day Zoe came to visit, I cleaned my small apartment from top to bottom. I bought her favorite snacks, set up the chessboard she'd always loved, and waited with a nervousness I hadn't felt since my first solo wilderness expedition. When my phone buzzed with her text, outside, I nearly knocked over a lamp rushing to the door. She stood there, backpack slung over her shoulder, looking both younger and older than her 12 years. "Hi, Dad." We ordered pizza and played chess while she filled me in on school and friends. Normal conversation that felt anything but normal in our new reality. She carefully avoided mentioning Tracy or Victor, and I didn't push. "I have something for you," she said finally, reaching into her backpack. She pulled out a manila envelope. I wasn't supposed to find this. It was in Mom's closet. Inside were documents I immediately recognized, financial records, carefully organized by year. Checks made out to Victor Reese, dated back to before Zoe was even born. "Where did you get these?" My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. "Mom's been shredding papers. She doesn't know I took these." Her eyes, serious beyond her years, met mine. "Is Mom in trouble?" I chose my words carefully. "These show that your mom has been giving money to Victor for a long time. Money that came from our family accounts." "Why would she do that?" "How do you explain blackmail to a 12-year-old? Sometimes adults make complicated arrangements." "Is that why you left? Because Mom was giving him our money?" "No, Zoe. I left because I needed time to think after finding out about Victor." I set the documents aside. "But these might help explain some things." She twisted her hands in her lap. "Mom says we have to meet him next weekend. A family dinner." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't want to go." "You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with," I said, fighting to keep my tone measured despite the anger building inside me. "Can't I just stay with you?" The simple question carried impossible weight. Under current arrangements, I had no legal right to keep her overnight without Tracy's permission. "I'm working on that," I promised. "But right now, things are complicated." After Zoe left, I called Derek and explained what she'd brought me. He whistled low. "This changes everything," he said. "If we can prove Tracy was paying him off with marital assets, that's misappropriation. Add in the deception about paternity, and we've got leverage." "I don't want leverage," I replied. "I want my daughters protected from whatever game these two have been playing." "Then you'll love this," Derek continued. "I did some digging on Victor Reese. Turns out he's got a medical condition, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It's genetic, passes to kids with a 50% chance. My blood ran cold. Have the girls been tested? No record of it. Tracy probably doesn't even know." The implications hit me like an avalanche. If Victor had this condition, both girls could be at risk. Sudden cardiac arrest was common with HCM, especially in young athletes. Aubrey had played soccer for years. Zoe was on the swim team. "I need to get them tested," I said, already reaching for my keys. "Immediately." Slow down, Derek cautioned. We need to do this legally. Let me file for Emergency Medical Decision-Making Authority. With these financial records and the medical situation, we've got solid grounds. I reluctantly agreed, but spent the night pacing my apartment, haunted by the thought that my daughters might be walking around with time bombs in their chests. All because Tracy and Victor had been too selfish to consider the consequences of their deception. They told me I was never their real dad, so I walked away. But what happened after that day left them all shaken. Victor wasn't just the biological father. He was a medical risk they never knew about. And now I was the only one who could protect them. The emergency hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. Monday. I arrived at the courthouse at 8, papers organized, wearing the suit I'd bought for Aubrey's middle school graduation. Derek met me on the steps, confidence radiating from his expensive Italian shoes to his perfectly knotted tie. "Remember," he said, "let me do the talking. Judge Winters is fair but traditional. Don't let Tracy provoke you." Inside, Tracy sat with her attorney, a sharp-looking woman in a crimson blazer. Victor wasn't present, a small mercy. When Tracy saw me, her expression shifted from confidence to something like concern. She'd expected me to crumble, to fade away. My presence here, fighting, resolute, wasn't part of her script. Judge Winters, a gray-haired woman with piercing eyes, called the court to order. "This is an unusual case," she began, reviewing the file. "Mr. Murphy is seeking emergency medical decision-making authority for 2 minor children he has recently discovered are not biologically his." Tracy's attorney rose smoothly. "Your Honor, this is a transparent attempt to manipulate the divorce proceedings. The children have a biological father who can make these decisions." "Victor Reese is not a party to this action," Derek countered, "and there's no evidence he's been involved in the children's medical care for the past 18 years. I listened as they argued legal points, my attention fixed on the folder containing Victor's medical records Derek had somehow obtained. Inside was proof that both girls needed cardiac screening immediately. Finally, Judge Winters turned to me. "Mr. Murphy, why should I grant you medical authority over these children when their biological father and mother are both available?" I stood, feeling the weight of 18 years of fatherhood on my shoulders. "Your Honor, I've been the only father these girls have known. I've taken them to every doctor's appointment, held their hands through every vaccination, sat in emergency rooms for broken bones and midnight fevers. This isn't about custody or divorce. It's about their immediate safety." "Explain the urgency," she pressed. "Victor Reese has hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a genetic heart condition that can cause sudden death, especially in young people. Neither of my daughters has been tested. Both are athletes. The risk is immediate and potentially fatal." Tracy gasped audibly, her face draining of color. This was clearly news to her. Judge Winters studied the medical documentation, her expression grave. "Ms. Murphy, were you aware of this condition?" Tracy shook her head, stunned into honesty. "No, Your Honor." "And has Mr. Reese ever participated in the children's medical decisions?" "No," she admitted. "Grant always handled that." The judge sighed deeply. "This situation is a mess of your making, Ms. Murphy. These children have been denied critical medical information because of deception." She turned to me. "Mr. Murphy, I'm granting your request for temporary medical decision-making authority. Have both children tested immediately." As we left the courtroom, Tracy caught up to me in the hallway, her eyes wild with panic. "Is it true? About Victor's heart?" I nodded. "The girls need to be tested. Today." For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. Not for herself, but for our daughters. "I never knew," she whispered. "He never told me." In that moment, I felt a shift in the ground beneath us. The elaborate castle of lies she'd built was crumbling, leaving only the stark reality that her choices had put our daughters at risk. And now, she needed me, the man she betrayed, to help save them. The results of the cardiac screening came back 3 days later. I sat in Dr. Landon's office, gripping the armrests while she explained the findings. "Aubrey is clear. No signs of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy." Relief flooded through me until she continued. "But Zoe's tests show early indicators. The condition hasn't fully developed, but the genetic markers are present." My world narrowed to a pinpoint. What does that mean for her? "With early intervention, we can manage it. She'll need medication, regular monitoring, and some lifestyle adjustments. Dr. Landon's kind eyes met mine. No competitive swimming, unfortunately. Swimming was Zoe's passion, the thing that made her eyes light up, her refuge when everything else felt chaotic. How do I tell her? I whispered. Would you like me there when you do? I shook my head. No. This needs to come from me. Outside the clinic, I found Tracy waiting in her car. The past weeks had aged her visibly. Dark circles under her eyes, tension lines around her mouth. When I approached, she rolled down her window, not quite meeting my gaze. Well, the word hung between us. Aubrey's clear. Zoe has it. She covered her mouth, tears welling immediately. Oh God, what have I done? For the first time since discovering her betrayal, I felt something other than anger, a shared despair for our daughter. We need to tell her together, I said, and then we need to talk about where we go from here. Tracy nodded, wiping her eyes. Victor disappeared, you know. When I confronted him about the heart condition, just packed up and left town. Typical. The revelation didn't surprise me. Victor had spent 18 years taking payments to stay away, showing up only when it benefited him. He was never going to step up now. She needs her father, Tracy said softly. Her real father. The words hung in the air between us. An acknowledgement, however belated, of the truth that had always existed beneath the lies. I never stopped being her father, I replied. Not for a single day. That evening, Tracy brought both girls to my apartment. We sat around my small kitchen table, and together, we told Zoe about her heart condition. Her face crumpled when we explained about swimming. It's not fair, she sobbed. I took her hands in mine. No, it's not. But we caught early, Zoe. You're going to be okay. Will you help me? She asked, her eyes fixed on mine. With the doctor stuff and everything? Always, I promised. Nothing has changed about that. After the girls went to bed, Aubrey on the couch, Zoe on my bed while I took the floor, Tracy and I sat on the apartment building steps. I filed to dismiss the divorce proceedings, she said quietly. I looked at her, surprised. Not because I think we can fix our marriage, she clarified, but because I want to refile with different terms. Terms that acknowledge what you've always been to the girls. And what's that? Their father. In every way that matters. It wasn't forgiveness. That would take longer than a conversation on apartment steps could provide. But it was a start, a recognition of the truth that biology never defined my role in my daughter's lives. My love did. 6 months later, I stood at the edge of Eagle's Peak, watching the sunrise paint the valley in gold and crimson. The cabin I'd built years ago stood below, smoke curling from the chimney, where Aubrey was probably making pancakes, still her specialty despite being home from college on winter break. The divorce had finalized 3 months ago, with terms that reflected my continued role in the girls' lives. Full custody sharing, decision-making authority, even my name remaining on their documents as father. Victor's existence was acknowledged legally, but his absence from their lives continued as it always had. Dad, Zoe's voice called from down the trail. Mom's here. I turned to see my youngest, making her way up the path, bundled against the December chill. Her medication had stabilized her condition, and while competitive swimming was out, she'd discovered rock climbing, a controlled activity her cardiologist approved with proper monitoring. Coming, I called back, taking one last look at the sunrise. The path down was familiar. I could navigate it blindfolded after years of leading tours through these mountains. As I descended, I reflected on the journey of the past year, the betrayal, the anger, the fight to reclaim not just my place in my daughter's lives, but my own sense of identity. Tracy waited by her car, dressed for the drive back to Denver. Our new arrangement allowed the girls to split their time between us. Holidays at the cabin with me, school days in the city with her. Not perfect, but workable. We'd never be friends, but we'd found a way to be parents together despite everything. They're excited about Christmas, she said as I approached. Aubrey's talking about bringing her new boyfriend. I groaned. Already, a ghost of our old, understanding past between us. Shared concern for our daughter's happiness, regardless of biology. I've been thinking, I said, changing subjects, about changing the company name. Oh, Tracy raised an eyebrow. The restructuring had kept her as a minor shareholder, but operational control remained mine. Murphy and Daughters Wilderness Expeditions, I explained. Aubrey's showing real interest in the business side, and Zoe's already a better trail guide than half my staff. Tracy nodded, an unexpected softness in her expression. They'd like that. As she drove away, I walked to the cabin where my daughters waited. The smell of slightly burned pancakes and coffee greeted me. Familiar. Home. Dad, can we go to Aspen Ridge today? Zoe asked, bouncing on her toes. I want to test my new climbing gear. Aubrey rolled her eyes. It's freezing out there. That's why they invented jackets. Genius. I laughed, the sound easier now than it had been months ago. The path forward wasn't perfect. There would still be hard days, complicated emotions, moments when the past threatened to overwhelm the present. But standing there in the kitchen my hands had built, with daughters who chose me as their father every day through their love and trust, I knew one thing for certain. Family isn't defined by blood. It's built by choice, strengthened by challenge, and sustained by love that doesn't falter even when the ground shifts beneath your feet. Aspen Ridge it is, I said, grabbing my gear bag. Let's hit the trail.